I never wanted to spend Christmas Eve alone. It just kind of happened. My roommate flew home for the holidays. My girlfriend and I were, on a break, and the rest of the family lived 3 states away, buried in a blizzard that shut down every airport within 100 miles. So there I was, heating up instant cocoa in my tiny rental house, trying to convince myself I wasn't bothered by the silence. But silence is funny. When it lasts long enough, it starts to feel crowded, like something else is in it with you. It happened at 11:47 p.m. I remember because I looked at the stove clock the moment I heard it. Knock, knock, knock. Not hurried, not panicked. Slow, heavy, meant to be heard. I froze halfway through taking a sip. Nobody knocks that late, especially not on Christmas Eve. My porch light was out, had been out for weeks, so when I looked through the peephole, all I saw was darkness. No movement, no breathing, nothing. Just when I thought maybe it was a prank. Knock, knock, knock. Steady, patient. I cracked the door open maybe an inch, just enough to peek through the gap. A man stood on my porch, tall, still, wearing a deep red hooded coat that covered most of his face. I couldn't see his eyes, just the shadow of his head lowered slightly. "Can I help you?" I asked, keeping my foot braced behind the door. He didn't respond, didn't move, didn't even breathe, as far as I could tell. Then his head tilted a few degrees to the left, not naturally, not curiously, more like he was listening. I didn't like that, not one bit. "Sorry," I said, "you have the wrong house." I closed the door, locked the deadbolt, and put the chain on, and dragged a chair in front of it because the whole thing set me on edge. I backed away, waiting to hear him leave, but what I heard instead was a slow, deliberate exhale through the crack beneath the door. I called out, "Hey, I said wrong house." No answer. The exhale stopped, followed by soft, rhythmic tapping on the door. Not knocking, more like dragging fingernails gently across the wood. I didn't check again. I went straight for my phone to call the police. No signal. Wi-Fi out. Maybe coincidence, maybe an outage. But in that moment, it felt like the world outside my walls had disconnected, cut away, and left me with whatever stood on the other side of my door. After a few minutes, the tapping stopped. No footsteps walking away, no car engine, no nothing. I thought he might have left, but then, thump above me, then another, slow, deliberate steps across the roof. My house was only 1 story, so the sound felt close enough to reach out and touch. I grabbed the only weapon I had, a heavy fireplace poker. I stared at the ceiling as the footsteps moved toward the back of the house, toward my bedroom. Then, silence. A silence so complete it made the hairs on my arms stand up. I decided to leave. Whatever was going on, staying inside felt like a trap. I grabbed my coat and keys and went to the back door. The moment I touched the knob, a voice whispered through the wood, "Don't." I stumbled away from the door, my heart hammered so loud I could feel it in my teeth. Then I remembered. My house had a tiny basement, barely more than a crawl space, with a small window facing the backyard. If I could slip out the window, I could make a run for my car. It was stupid, it was desperate, but staying wasn't an option. I crept down the narrow stairs into the basement. It was pitch black except for the thin outline of the window. Snow was piled halfway up it, glowing faintly under a street lamp. I pushed the window open, cold air rushed in. I stuck my arms out, preparing to climb through, when something moved in the snow. Not walking, not running, standing. A tall figure in a red hood staring directly at the window. My window. His face was still hidden, but his head tilted slowly to one side, then the other, like he was studying me. I couldn't breathe. He lifted a hand and placed it on the glass. I ran, didn't even think, just ran. I locked myself in the bathroom, the only room with no windows, poker in hand, back to the wall, trying to calm my shaking. And the house began to creak, wood bending, nails groaning. Something was in sight. I heard slow footsteps in the hallway, dragging, deliberate, coming towards the bathroom. I held my breath. The footsteps stopped right outside. Silence. Then the doorknob turned. Once. Twice. Slowly. Then stopped. I was frozen when he spoke. "You should have opened the door the first time." His voice was deep but strained, like each word scraped up his throat. I braced the poker, and he slammed into the door. Once the hinges rattled. Twice the frame cracked. A third time the wood splintered. I backed into the corner. The door gave way, and nobody was there. The hallway was empty. The cold air rolled in like fog. I stepped out trembling, looking for any sign of movement. That's when I noticed footprints in the carpet. Large, wet, leading down the hall towards the living room. I followed them with the poker raised and stopped dead. The front door was wide open, snow blowing inside. But the footprints didn't lead out to the door. They led past it, into the middle of the living room, and ended, just stopped. Like he'd vanished into thin air. I called the police the moment my phone lit back up with signal. They searched the house, the yard, the street, but nothing. No signs of forced entry, no footprints on the roof, no tracks in the snow other than mine. They told me stress can make people see strange things. Before they left, one officer pointed to a tiny piece of paper on my coffee table. "Did you leave this here?" he asked. I shook my head. The card was folded in half like a Christmas tag. On the front in dark red ink it said, "For you." I opened it. Inside was one sentence. "Next time I won't knock." I moved out 2 days later, but sometimes, around 11:47 p.m, I hear knocking. Not at my door, at the wall inside the house. Slow, patient, waiting for me to open it. And I know, with every part of me, that the man in the red hood never left. He's just waiting for the night I'm alone again, because he promised, next time he won't knock. Thank you all for listening. If you enjoyed, feel free to subscribe, it helps me out a lot. And you can also check out some of the other videos we have on screen just now. Thank you.